The Midwest, it haunts me. I was born in Chicago, raised in Joliet, Illinois. I went to high school at a military academy in Delafield, Wisconsin. I went to college at Clark University, which is a very small college in Dubuque, Iowa. I ran cross country in the craziest conditions you could imagine. My first love happened in the Midwest in 8th grade to Gina Dickey. There was just so much dreaming that happened out of those places and those spaces in the little apartment we grew up in, to the dorm rooms that I lived in college and in high school. It haunts me, and I think that's why it always shows up in my work.
Adam, in your new novel, Wolf at the Table, we have this extraordinary synthesis of, on the one hand, a multi-generational family epic spanning 60 years in the life of the Larkins, this upstate New York Catholic family. And on the other hand, a really close look at crime and what becomes a story of a serial killer. I'd be curious to hear you talk about those points of inspiration for the novel.
Yeah, about 10 years ago, I was doing some research for a serial killer drama that I was considering to write as a television script. And I was reading and delving into the life of John Wayne Gacy just on my own. In the midst of this, I received a box in the mail from my Aunt Roberta, who had sent me some of my mom's last effects. My mother passed away in 1997. And within it were some letters, there was a few personal items, and then one thing that was in it was my mom's nurse's badge. This work ID showed that she had been working until 1995. It dawned on me as I was doing the John Wayne Gacy inquiry that he was executed in May of '94, and he was executed at the prison where my mom worked. I made a few calls and I found out that she was actually on duty, and very likely was the nurse who performed his final physical so that they could do the chemistry correctly for his lethal injection. And that really, really freaked me out and made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And I felt like the container of that story was much, much larger than a television idea. It felt like it wanted to be a longer, more longitudinal approach for a narrative, and it felt like a novel to me. An hour later, in a kind of trance, Myra crosses the Ohio River and pulls into an all-night diner in rural Kentucky, just outside Paducah. Before she goes inside, she takes in the river, whose surface is oddly smooth, like obsidian, as if she could take her shoes off and walk out into the middle and wait for some strange being to appear and advise her about the next phase of her life. She looks at the map under the dome light of her pacer. She could keep going south. The cities are staggered downward toward the Gulf of Mexico like a series of provocations. She could just keep driving and driving until dawn. She could take a quick nap in Memphis and still be in New Orleans before noon. She could watch the sun dapple the skin of Lake Pontchartrain. She could start her life over there. She could disappear just as Denny did 6 years ago. She could change her name and find a little carriage house and grow old and anonymous and unwitnessed. No more worries about Ronin or groceries or booster shots or parent-teacher conferences or showing up at the dingy hospital where children get abandoned and suffered and die all too often. She is briefly thrilled by this prospect, this possibility of shape-changing into something she's never known herself to be. She could start writing or take up watercolor painting. She could work at a used bookstore and speak with a strange accent. She could become promiscuous. She could paint the trim on her carriage house a vibrant electric yellow. Her garden would be shaggy and strange. She would grow misshapen heirloom tomatoes and keep bees in the backyard. Inside her house, she would walk around naked and seldom shower and let her armpit hair grow out and sleep on extravagant pillows. She would start smoking hashish and listen to Joni Mitchell and read John Cheever stories and the novels of Toni Morrison and Joyce Carol Oates. But as the wipers clear away the rain, these thoughts start to disappear as if they were written with her finger on the windshield. She can only see her son, Ronan, running around a cinder track, his long coppery hair lifting off his shoulders, his searching hazel eyes, which he inherited from her, his boyish arms that will be marked with mosquito bites in a couple of months, his pale, oddly muscular calves. She shifts the car into drive and eases back onto the highway. She's made a decision. She will not flee her life. She will return to her small unit on the third story of 2421 Ingalls Avenue, building number 6 of Cedarwood Apartments, where on the floor beside her bed, her sleeping son will be curled anxiously into himself, awaiting her loving hand.